Exclusive contract novel from Feilu Novel Network. On the defense scene of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, I launch a satellite to kill indiscriminately. 7th-generation satellite rocket technology, ultra-new satellite precision technology, 6th-generation air defense missile technology. Su Hao traveled through parallel worlds and became a freshman at the University of Science and Technology of China. Every night, he would dream and repeat his behavior of reading books in a quiet library until graduation. As a pirate, Su Hao created a satellite rocket model and originally intended to use the knowledge in his mind to fish in troubled waters. At the defense site, several mentors from the Chinese Academy of Sciences were very satisfied with the launch of the satellite rocket. Little did they know that at the moment the satellite rocket took off, Dragon Country simultaneously launched the latest 5th-generation satellite rocket. When the satellite, resembling a silver butterfly, floated in space, everyone at the space agency cheered and cheered. However, one data officer noticed something was wrong. There is a problem with the satellite accuracy. It's 0.1 meters in Meili Country and 1.5 meters in Maoxiong Country. This time, we will send Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Difficulty of Hell Defense. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Su Hao, observe silence. Handsome people always have to bear some disasters. University of Science and Technology of China, dormitory. Brother Glasses patted Su Hao's shoulder, half gloating and half genuinely feeling unworthy of Su Hao. Su Hao shrugged his shoulders. The situation is like this. As a traveler, Su Hao traveled to the parallel world of Blue Star and became a freshman in the Department of Information Engineering at the University of Science and Technology of China. University of Science and Technology of China. This is not inferior to the top universities in northern China. The students who can enter the University of Science and Technology of China are all high school entrance exam experts who were killed by the army. Students who can graduate from the University of Science and Technology of China are truly the coveted assets of major companies. Whether it's taking the civil service exam, postgraduate entrance exam, or conducting research, the identity of the University of Science and Technology of China will bring a lot of convenience. Su Hao, who had just crossed over, thought he was about to reach the pinnacle of his life. However, he soon realized a fatal problem. He did not inherit the knowledge that was originally able to get into the level of the University of Science and Technology of China. That is to say, Chinese, mathematics, English, physics, chemistry, and biology have not reached the level required to be admitted to the University of Science and Technology of China. Su Hao himself cannot be called a scumbag, but he is just an ordinary person who has not had the knowledge to be admitted to the University of Science and Technology of China. So, from the day he enrolled in his freshman year, Su Hao realized that he was a fake. In class, the teacher explained some concepts and knowledge that he couldn't understand at all. Some of the projects that need to be done are also completed carelessly. Some classroom assignments are too difficult, even because Su Hao is quite handsome. The girls in the same class wanted to pursue Su Hao and forced him to do them. Despite his hard work, Su Hao successfully became an ordinary student in the class with low academic performance. But in the blink of an eye, it was the 4th year of college, about to graduate. Every student should prepare their final thesis and prepare for the final baptism of defense. What makes Brother Glasses gloat but really feels unworthy for Su Hao is that, Su Hao has reached the level of hell in defense difficulty. At the University of Science and Technology of China, 10 lucky graduates are selected each year to participate in a defense composed of 4 academicians from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Su Hao is one of the 10 major enemies. The defense of others is either led by the supervisor of our school as the defense committee member, or by a bachelor's degree from another school as the defense committee member. If you are the supervisor of our school, the difficulty is too small. Don't worry about the paper being difficult enough, because your supervisor will help you get through the difficulties. If it is a bachelor's degree from another university, although the difficulty may be higher, it is not very difficult to pass the defense. But Su Hao's defense, if you want to pass, it will be as difficult as the sky. The Chinese Academy of Sciences directly under the University of Science and Technology of China. For academicians from the Chinese Academy of Sciences personally appeared as defense committee members and posed questions to the students. This difficulty, 10 deaths without life. This is also something that Brother Glasses feels unworthy of for Su Hao. Bad luck. Pop pop. Brother Glasses patted Su Hao's shoulder and his expression became serious. Su Hao, although you claim to be a fake, I still suggest that you find ways to enter some relatively innovative fields. My paper is Speculations on the Application of New Materials in Nuclear Power Physics, and the boss's paper is Speculations on Future Exoskeleton Electronic and Mechanical Equipment. Have you seen it? Our paper is all speculation. Speculation is something that cannot be determined yet. As long as your mind is wide open and it catches people's eyes, having a defense is not a problem. I feel like it's too difficult to come up with something real. There are countless role kings every year. How about you enter a new field like this, create some models, and come up with seemingly unreal speculations? Perhaps your imaginative ideas can win the favor of the 4 academicians. Brother Glasses suggested. Brother Glasses is named Xiaohua, from Jiangqing. He also likes to claim to be a fake product and uses it as a joke. However, this guy scored 683 in the college entrance examination that year. His advice is indeed good. Su Hao thinks it makes a lot of sense. Wait until Xiaohua goes out to eat. When there is only Su Hao in the dormitory, it is peaceful. The other people in the dormitory either prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination and almost live in the library, or they no longer live in the dormitory. The only 2 people currently living in the 4-person dormitory are Su Hao and Brother Glasses. Su Hao lay in bed, closing his eyes. At the moment he closed his eyes, he had already arrived at a library. The library is very quiet, with neatly arranged books everywhere. Recording knowledge and civilization. On a table, there were still books that Su Hao had not finished reading yet. 6th generation manned rocket transportation space technology, high-precision air defense missile technology, new military material composite structure combination technology. This library appeared when Su Hao first traveled, and can appear here with just one thought. When Su Hao first entered, he was shocked as he looked at the books in the library. It includes human geography, spiritual and material civilization, technology and technology. Various technologies emerge endlessly, and various books record the crystallization of civilization. Su Hao read various technical books one by one, and if he couldn't understand them, he started learning from the most basic ones. But later, Su Hao found through investigation that some of the things in the library were too advanced, as if they were fake. For example, the satellite he is currently researching. Satellites are a very important part of the aerospace field. It was Su Laoj who launched the first artificial satellite, and since then, countries have realized the importance of satellites and rapidly developed the satellite field. In the field of satellites, Yingjiang can be said to be the most outstanding. The satellites they launch into space can achieve an astonishing accuracy of 0.1 meters, which is even when a person stands there, they can take a rough view. And the furry bear is 1.5 meters. Far inferior to Eagle Sauce, but also one of the satellite powers. However, the satellite technology that Su Hao saw in the library had an accuracy of terrifying 0.01 meters. What is this concept? A person got lost while herding sheep in the mountains, and with this satellite, they can quickly locate their location, and even see their face, which is very clear. This once made Su Hao think that the things in the library were a bit too advanced. He has always had the habit of reading. It has been 4 years since I read it that way. Books on humanistic spirit have cultivated Su Hao's character, historical books have enhanced his wisdom, and technical books have enriched his knowledge. From a learning perspective, Su Hao is just an average student. But in terms of professional knowledge, Su Hao is actually top-notch. Do you study something new? As a graduate, the paper that Su Hao originally prepared was actually very cliché. After all, he boasted of being a cheap commodity, and originally intended to casually write a paper and enter society through defense. But since we have reached the hell-level defense difficulty, the originally prepared paper was really not up to par. New things, aren't satellites new things? Su Hao suddenly thought of it. The satellite I am currently researching has an accuracy of 0.01 meters. Although I am not sure if it can be manufactured in reality, I can create a model and explain the general conceptual knowledge. In college, no college student's graduation thesis is a high-precision satellite, which is not a field that college students can get involved in. So Su Hao wrote a satellite paper. Is that new enough? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Birth of Satellite and Rocket Papers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do whatever you say. Su Hao immediately found many books on satellite technology in the library. Precautions for manufacturing high-precision satellites, theoretical limit of satellite accuracy in discussion, 7th-generation satellite technology, ultra-new satellite accuracy technology. Gradually, while reading, Su Hao gave birth to some enlightenment. Satellites require specialized rockets to be sent up, and they will be affected by non-spherical Earth's gravitational field, atmospheric resistance, solar gravity, lunar gravity, and light pressure. The actual motion is very complex. Unconsciously, Su Hao had already read until the evening. With a flash of consciousness, Su Hao left the library and returned to his dormitory. It was already dark, and Xiaohua also returned to the dormitory. Su Hao flipped out of bed, turned on his computer, and began shopping for materials online. Although it is a model, sufficient material support is also needed, otherwise all technologies are just empty talk. Papers on empty talk technology will definitely not fall into the eyes of academicians of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Seeing Su Hao open the online shopping platform, Xiaohua was immediately surprised. Su Hao, you never shop online before. Let me see. Carbon fiber. Graphene. Aluminum alloy. Magnesium alloy. Xiaohua was a bit surprised. These materials are all military grade and can be used in various fields. Do a model experiment, Su Hao said. Xiaohua gave a thumbs up and said, it's almost time to defend. You're still doing experiments. Teacher Su's spirit is worth learning from me. I'll call you Teacher Su in the future. Su Hao rolled his eyes and waited until the online shopping of rough materials was over before starting to sketch again. He was busy until the latter half of the night before slowly falling asleep. The next day, I just woke up and opened my eyes. Xiaohua happened to return to the dormitory from outside, holding a bowl of noodles in his hand. When he saw Su Hao wake up, he exclaimed, "Come down and have dinner. Yesterday I woke up to pee and saw that you hadn't slept yet. Teacher Su, don't put too much pressure on yourself, come on." Xiaohua raised an eyebrow at him. Su Hao smiled, feeling warm in his heart. After eating, he began to busy himself with research again. In the library, his understanding of satellite technology is becoming increasingly profound. The model I want to create is not just satellites, but also rockets. Because satellites cannot reach space on their own, I need to create rockets that can send satellites into space. Su Hao continued to purchase materials online and continued to draw sketches. Day by day, he lived a very fulfilling life, constantly researching every day. During this period, Xiaohua really admired Su Hao. When others encountered this hellish difficulty, they probably lay flat. However, when Su Hao encountered this hellish difficulty, he not only didn't lay flat or lay it down, but also studied it for a long time in a day. In May, the weather becomes hot, and college life becomes joyful, with beautiful little sisters everywhere. Xiaohua stood excitedly on the window of the dormitory and shouted to Su Hao, "Teacher Su, there is black silk outside." Su Hao remained unmoved. After such a long period of conceptualization, he has entered the final stage and is thinking about the final challenge. Once the problem is solved, his research will no longer be hindered. He will create a model and go to the defense site to decide whether to live or die. Xiaohua saw that Su Hao remained unmoved and curled his lips, so his gaze excitedly turned to the street. Until evening. Su Hao finally solved the difficult problem, and all the problems that emerged were being approached one by one. So it's like this. He completely understood. The next day. The model has been thoroughly manufactured. A graded rocket that is about the height of a human, carrying a satellite with an astonishing precision of 0.01 meters inside. Although this is just a model, it is also a work that Su Hao has put in all his effort to complete. Next, he began writing his paper. The film has already been born, and the paper is bound to be unstoppable. In just a few days, he completed all the papers. Such progress made Xiaohua shudder. Until this evening. The dormitory door was knocked by a slightly bald middle-aged skinny man. Xiaohua stood up immediately and said, "Teacher Wang is here." Wang Fu, Su Hao's mentor. Since Su Hao unfortunately reached hell difficulty, Wang Fu immediately prepared various methods in an attempt to ensure that his students could pass the level smoothly. But when it comes to defense, it basically depends on one's own true abilities. Wang Fu is not a mentor with such profound knowledge. I can only grit my teeth, thinking about the defense scene in my heart. I bravely sacrificed myself and intercepted the 4 academicians alone. I came to see Su Hao this time, and he just wanted to talk to him about his feelings. Dormitory corridor. Wang Fu patted Su Hao's shoulder and said, "Su Hao, you don't have to worry about this defense. Mentor, I have prepared 100% of my energy to overcome difficulties for you." 100% of the energy is actually that Wang Fu only has Su Hao as a student. Facing the 4 academicians, Wang Fu also feels a lot of pressure, but he needs to have an attitude and not let Su Hao feel the pressure too. Pressure. Su Hao didn't feel any pressure at all. During his 4 years of reading, he received a lot of humanistic books and biographies, drawing on the heroic wisdom of many great talents, and has long become calm. Can you pass the defense and try your best to be perfect? Lao Wang, don't worry, I'm fine. Su Hao smiled at him, completely relieved, but very relaxed. After all, Su Hao's paper and model have already been completed, all he needs to do is prepare his own speech. But in Wang Fu's view, this smile is clearly due to the student's own pressure, but not showing it in front of him. He took a deep breath and his eyes seemed to burst with flames. This time, the teacher will definitely use all his skills to help you pass the level. After returning, Wang Fu downloaded more than 10 papers and began to nibble on them, with a fighting spirit on his face, trying his best to supplement his knowledge and details as quickly as possible. The next day, Wang Fu stared at the dark circles under his eyes as he struggled to wake up, feeling a bit angry. But what's worse is that he was stuck in traffic during the rush hour this morning. And even more importantly, this day happened to be Su Hao's defense day. On-site defense. Su Hao and 9 other classmates sat quietly on the chair. One of the female classmates and his supervisor walked into the defense door. It only takes 5 minutes. The female classmate ran out crying. The mentor stood behind her and sighed as she watched the female classmate leave. What's the situation? Lao Zhang. At this moment, the other mentors couldn't sit still. That's right, Lao Zhang. Isn't the paper prepared by your student quite sufficient this time? Not only did a few mentors feel a bit restless. Even their students were worried. Professor Zhang let out a deep sigh at this moment. This year, the 4 academicians here are extraordinary. Academician Wang Changlin, who specializes in the military field, values practical matters and dislikes empty talk, is a typical pragmatist. Academician Zhang, a tycoon in the medical field. Academician Qin is a leader in information engineering materials technology. The last academician is called Lin Zhenghua, who is also a practical person. The difficulty of this year's defense is not just hell level. It's like 10 deaths without a life. The words of mentor surnamed Zhang directly made several mentors show despair. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3 Defense. A flying rocket model. You are listening at novel full.audio. The act of defending has been carried out in university for many years. According to the objective laws of observation, there are currently 2 interesting factions. Just like the judge, the defense has a significant subjective factor. The first faction is the faction. As the name suggests, the faction The second faction is the new concept faction. This faction likes new things, and the more innovative the concept, the more it can win their favor. But it doesn't mean they don't like the real thing. If you're both new and real, then you can definitely win enough likes. Of course, there are also the third and fourth factions, and even the kind-hearted faction. And the 4 academicians who arrived this year are also special. There are 2 pragmatists. There is no faction of kind-hearted people. The 4 academicians all come from different fields and are outstanding in different fields. As mentors, several mentors are better able to understand the details behind these names. On his face, there were expressions of despair or sighs. Unexpectedly, academicians Wang Changlin and Lin Zhenghua became defense committee members this year. 2 pragmatists, it's probably going to be difficult this year. It's broken. It's broken. Hell difficulty in hell difficulty. This is the voice in the heart of one of the mentors. However, at this critical moment, although the mentors felt it was not good, no one spoke up. If a facial expression were to affect the student's defense mentality, it would be a sin. Next. Soon, another male classmate walked into the defense door and entered the defense scene. Not long after, he and his mentor left the door together, with a somewhat regretful expression on their faces. I haven't passed. No need to ask, just look at the expression and you'll know that this classmate hasn't passed. Everyone's mood is even more depressed. Quickly, a classmate walked into the defense venue and walked out with their mentor, with a more or less disappointed expression on their faces. Surprisingly, none of them passed the defense. Next up, Su Hao. Finally, I called out Su Hao's name. Su Hao's spirit was uplifted. The teacher who called out looked at Su Hao in confusion and said, Su Hao, where is your supervisor? My supervisor is stuck in traffic on the way and cannot arrive at the moment, so I will go alone for this defense. Su Hao said. As soon as these words come out, the shouting teacher immediately cast a sympathetic gaze at Su Hao. Several other mentors, as well as classmates who have not yet left, also expressed sympathy to Su Hao. A girl also cast a sympathetic gaze at Su Hao. Even with a mentor present, it is even more difficult to pass the defense. The key is that this student's mentor can't even come because of traffic jam. It seems that this defense can only accept the true harm of 4 academicians alone. Classmate, are you really sure you want to participate in the defense alone? The shouting teacher couldn't help but confirm again in the end. Sure, Su Hao nodded. Okay. The teacher who shouted for someone pushed open the door for Su Hao and let him in. At the same time. Defense room. Four academicians from the Chinese Academy of Sciences are sitting in their respective positions. Wang Chonglin is a middle-aged man with a straight sitting posture and a Chinese-style face, exuding the demeanor of a soldier. As a practical person, he expressed some regret towards the paper of his previous classmate. If only he could make some real things. As soon as this sentence is spoken. On the side, equally serious Lin Jinghua also agreed. Yes, but his theory is filled with some unsolvable problems, which is also the primary issue that he did not pass the defense. In the defense room, there are not only 4 defense committee members from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, but also school representatives, President Sunday. At this moment, Principal Sun shook his head and felt somewhat disappointed. The defense of Hell difficulty is difficult to pass. The questions from the 4 academicians were too sharp. However, in last year's Hell's defense, at least 2 were passed. This year's Hell's defense, surprisingly not a single one passed. Of course, it is due to the replacement of the supervisor that the 2-year data cannot be compared. But as President Sun, who has become the president through academic achievements, he does see that the quality of this year's defense is generally not as good as last year. At a time of disappointment in the heart, Su Hao walked in. Everyone quickly tidied up their mood. Wang Chonglin took the lead in saying to Su Hao, "Hello classmates, please briefly introduce yourself. My name is Su Hao, from Qingcheng. The paper I am preparing for this time is research on ultra-high-precision satellites and rockets." Su Hao just finished speaking. Wang Chonglin frowned and said, "But what the information shows is that your paper is a conjecture on multi-quantum crystal military materials. This is my previous paper. In my recent research, I made new discoveries, so I changed the title of the paper temporarily." Su Hao said. "Wait. What did you just say? Your thesis topic is research on satellites and rockets." At this point, Lin Jinghua grasped the key point. The research on satellites and rockets. Are you sure it's research? It's not speculation. Research and speculation are fundamentally different. If you give a research name, then you must have gone through many experiments to come up with a summary of objective laws. And conjecture is not as rigorous as research. It's research. Su Hao's words made Wang Chonglin inexplicably frown. In his opinion, the whole story goes like this. When this student discovered that he had been selected for the defense of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, he believed that his original paper could not pass the defense, so he changed his research direction temporarily and took out the astonishing research on satellites and rockets, which is still ultra-high precision. But the defense of the Chinese Academy of Sciences has not taken many days so far. In such a short amount of time, I produced research papers on satellites and rockets. What projects are satellites and rockets? This is something that NASA is only busy with. What is a satellite? It is currently the fastest developing spacecraft in the world, and it is the aerospace field that the world is striving for development and breakthroughs. And rockets, not to mention that. Manned rockets, transport rockets, and stage rockets, no matter what type of rocket they are not something that a college student can study at all. There is simply no environment to study rockets. So in such a short period of time, it is difficult to convince Wang Chonglin that a paper titled Research on Ultra-High Precision Satellites and Rockets has been produced. In his opinion, it is almost impossible to achieve research results in such a short time. Thinking of this, Wang Chonglin's gaze towards Su Hao was mixed with some disappointment. In university, achievements are certainly very important. But in Wang Chonglin's view, if one is not successful, disloyal, and too utilitarian in life, even if there are achievements, they will still fail. However, the next second, Su Hao's face showed a hint of embarrassment as he stood up and said awkwardly, for teachers, I have prepared a real model of the ultra-high precision satellite rocket studied in the paper, but it is now outside and needs to be taken. Real model. Upon hearing this, Wang Changlin smiled a bit and said, rocket model, can it fly? Sure. Su Hao's words stunned Wang Changlin for a second. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4 Shockwave begins. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Models of satellites and rockets. Originally, in Wang Changlin's view, Su Hao was just a muddle-through before writing his paper. But Su Hao suddenly spoke up, saying that he had a set of models mentioned in the paper. Just give Wang Changlin the trouble. Is it because I blamed this student wrongly? Okay, go and get it quickly. Lin Jingguo beside him developed a strong interest. As a pragmatist, he really hopes to see the real thing. However, in this defense, the papers prepared by several students who came in one after another basically had nothing real. He couldn't help feeling disappointed but also a bit angry. A thesis, a final answer, is the crystallization of knowledge, a summary of the 4 years of university. It is impossible to come up with real things. Is it possible that all 4 years of learning are just empty words? Now Su Hao actually said that he still has a set of models and can fly. Immediately, it aroused Lin Jingguo's curiosity. Soon, Su Hao moved the model over. It wasn't moved alone. This thing is about the height of a person and very heavy. The two of them worked hard together to move over. Looking at the realistic appearance of the tall model, Wang Changlin was deeply moved. He actually pulled out the model. Did you blame him wrongly? At this point, Wang Fu is still stuck in traffic on the road. It's broken, it's broken. Wang Fu felt like he was going to die. Today is my student's defense day. But I can't pass through because of traffic jam. Do you want to miss the student's defense scene because of this? Can Su Hao accept the terrifying questioning and attack from 4 academicians alone? 4 academicians' questions. It's scary to think about it. Defense room. The atmosphere is very harmonious. 4 academicians, including Wang Changlin, were curious about the model of this satellite rocket. I even forgot to ask questions and kept watching around this satellite rocket. Lin Jingguo came to the side of the satellite rocket, personally touched it, and curiously said, "Can you really fly this model?" In theory, it can fly, but I'm not entirely sure if it can fly into space. The rocket originally designed by Su Hao was very tall and had enough fuel to launch into space. But a rocket with a normal proportion is not something that Su Hao can build alone. So in order to solve the problem of driving force, Su Hao also put in some effort specifically. What if it could fly into space? Lin Jingguo rolled his eyes. If such a small rocket could fly into space, it could really release the satellites inside the rocket. That may not be an iterative revolution in the rocket field of the entire Dragon Kingdom. At this moment, Wang Changlin spoke up and said, "All right, Su Hao, you can show everyone your new paper. All the research materials here are from your previous old papers. The old paper is just a conjecture." Wang Changlin just glanced at it and found that there were no bright spots or real things. It can be said that it did not please the practical faction or the new concept faction. But Su Hao's new paper is quite interesting. Okay, teachers, the paper has been sent to you. Su Hao sent the paper stored in the computer to the 4 academicians. Okay, you can elaborate on the important achievements of this paper. Academician Qin spoke according to the normal procedure at this time. But before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Lin Jingguo. "I'll go." Lin Jingguo, who was usually very serious, couldn't bear the shocked expression on his face at this moment, and even cursed directly. "What's wrong, Lao Lin?" Everyone looked at Lin Jingguo. "You guys read papers. Lin Jinghua struggled to shift his gaze away from the paper and told everyone to read it. Read the paper. The three academicians quickly looked over. I don't know if I don't look at it. At first glance, I was completely shocked. Ultra-high precision. 0.01 meter precision. Good boy, do you really dare to think? The satellite on Eagle Sauce's side is already the strongest satellite in the world, with an accuracy of only 0.1 meters, which is 1/10 of what you mentioned in your paper. You want to pay Eagle Sauce for it all at once. Wang Chonglin glanced at the paper and was immediately surprised by the terrifying data. He then reacted and started laughing again. However, although your arrogance may be arrogant, I like it. Wang Chonglin thinks that Su Hao is quite interesting, daring to act or think, although it is impossible to achieve. Yingjiang has been using the aerospace field that has been developed for so many years, and the artificial satellite that has been developed for so many years, with an accuracy of only 0.1 meters. This 0.1 meter is already divine precision, even Eagle Sauce finds it difficult to break through. Not to mention being surpassed by a student. But at least, Su Hao dares to think. So motivated, Wang Chonglin thinks it's pretty good. Other academicians also laughed, thinking that Su Hao dared to think. At this moment, Lin Jinghua's voice rang out. Three of you, I'm not saying that. What I mean is, you guys, take a closer look at the paper. Look at the techniques in the paper. Lao Lin, what's wrong with you? Lin Jinghua's abnormal behavior left Wang Chonglin somewhat confused. Let's take a look first. After reading it, let's talk. Lin Jinghua looked at the paper and took a deep breath, saying. Wang Chonglin also continued to look at the paper. The same goes for the other two academicians. Then. There was no sound left, quiet as a stagnant water. The four academicians seemed to have stiffened, frozen in place, without speaking for a long time. This scene left Principal Sun somewhat dazed. He watched the entire defense in his eyes. The four academicians read the papers of the previous students for 1 or 2 minutes before starting to ask questions. However, after reading Su Hao's paper, these four academicians were completely at a standstill. They had been reading it for 3 or 4 minutes, but still didn't say a word. What does this anomaly indicate? Perhaps Su Hao is a bit different from the previous students. Outside the defense room. Since Su Hao entered, he has not appeared from the defense room for a long time. It made everyone feel a bit strange. The gaze of a female classmate was even more filled with sympathy. Our defense ended in just 5 or 6 minutes. It seems like he had already been 10 minutes since he entered, right? Oh my God, what a blow he has to take. A male classmate's gaze was also filled with impatience. This paper needs to be very watery to be scolded for so long. A mentor also shook his head. Poor boy, even if he got the hell-level defense, his mentor was still stuck in traffic, and he was trained for 10 minutes alone inside. What bad luck. Everyone shook their heads repeatedly, looking sympathetic for Su Hao. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Satellite rocket launch, shock continues. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the defense room. The four academicians looked at Su Hao's paper and were completely stunned. Of course, in President Sun's view, the four academicians were in a daze. But in fact, the four academicians were reading a material filled with knowledge, wandering in the ocean of knowledge, completely intoxicated. There is basically no plagiarism check in the paper, because the projects studied by Su Hao are extremely rare both domestically and internationally. In the field of satellites and rockets, even if there is real research, many papers are just fake, and they are all conjectures. But the paper submitted by Su Hao is a truly authentic research. All kinds of data are presented in the paper. Oh my goodness, this data records how to balance stress. Satellite light irradiation reflection technology. How can the high-precision problem of satellite positioning be solved like this? It turns out that particle technology can be used. 0.01 meters. If all the data in the paper is true, perhaps it is really possible to achieve a super high accuracy of 0.01 meters. Oh my goodness. If all the data in this paper is true, then China's satellite field will have to move forward a lot. If all the technologies in this paper are true, China's satellite field will advance by 20 years. In an instant, the quiet environment was disrupted and became noisy. The four academicians were deeply impressed by the technology presented in the paper, every word they said. If all the technologies in the paper are true, what will this represent? It represents that China's satellite field will make significant progress, even surpassing Yingjiang. Wang Changlin took a deep breath. He originally thought that Su Hao was just daring to think. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect Su Hao to dare to do it. There are so many technologies included in a paper. If someone else has come up with a technology, they may be able to write several papers. But Su Hao gathered several technologies together in one paper. The value of this paper is simply overwhelming. Just one sentence to describe it. All dry goods. It's just like the Sahara Desert. No moisture at all. It's simply a perfect paper. Wang Changlin took a deep breath and asked Su Hao, who is your mentor? Wang Changlin has been deeply shocked by the technology involved. Based on the calculations in my mind just now, I was surprised to find that the various data written in the paper were completely error-free. Wang Changlin is very confident in his brain, and mental arithmetic has always been his strength. However, during the mental calculation of the paper's techniques just now, he found that all the data in the paper was correct. That is to say, the various technologies in the paper are completely possible to implement. With Su Hao alone, it may be difficult to achieve. Perhaps his mentor is a very excellent old scholar. My mentor is Wang Fu. Su Hao said. A good name, it looks like an old scholar. Wang Changlin casually praised the name. However, at this moment, Principal Sun realized something. Wang Fu. Su Hao is his student. As the principal, he has a deep understanding of Wang Fu. Let me put it in a bad word. Wang Fu's knowledge is decent, but he is too young to keep up, and his knowledge and research cannot be compared with those of an old scholar in his 50s and 60s. It is said that he is middle-aged, but in fact, Wang Fu is only in his early 30s. He is too young and has not been doing research for many years, so he is not considered a very talented mentor. Did I misread Wang Fu? In fact, Wang Fu is a hidden academic tycoon. At this moment, Wang Fu is still stuck in traffic, morning rush hour. It's almost noon now, isn't it? Why are there still traffic jams? Wang Fu looked ahead, feeling extremely anxious. Su Hao is afraid that he will curse himself to death. Even if Su Hao doesn't scold himself, Wang Fu himself will still despise him severely. For students, they were actually absent from such an important defense session. I have already prepared to fight against the fourth academician with a single tongue. Outside the defense room. The shock of the four academicians just now was too loud. It even spread to the outside. Everyone heard faint voices and felt the intense emotion, and their faces couldn't help but show more sympathy. Poor thing, it will take 20 minutes to get in, right? It hasn't even been out for 20 minutes. I'm afraid I've been told that I've broken my conscience, right? Several students who failed their defense deeply sympathized with Su Hao. A few mentors also feel a bit intimidating, just cursing and shouting loudly. How watery is this student's paper? The classmate who just entered seems to be Lao Wang's student, right? How about send Lao Wang a WeChat? See where he is. A mentor silently suggested. In the defense room. After reading the paper, the 4 academicians were unable to bear the shock, and at the same time, their minds began to move. Su Hao, could you tell me about the GPS positioning system technology of satellites? Wang Chonglin said. Su Hao elaborated on this. He can be said to have thoroughly studied satellites in the library. Regardless of the type of satellite or specific technology, he has almost conducted research. Seeing Su Hao answering truthfully, he had a confident mind. The more Wang Chonglin looked, the more he found Su Hao pleasing. Take a deeper look at the paper. Wang Chonglin turned his head and looked at Principal Sun, his face becoming more serious. Principal Sun, please upgrade this defense to a confidential action, and remember to keep the surveillance footage properly. If the technology of this paper is proven to be achievable, it may bring about a huge transformation in China's satellite field. Principal Sun, I hope you can understand the importance of this defense and not let the content of this paper be leaked. Principal Sun also realized the importance of this paper and immediately said, okay, I will notify the outside and block the scene. For now, only entry is allowed and no exit is allowed. Wang Chonglin nodded. The materials for this paper are really too important. No one expected that such level of information would be born in a defense. If all the technical data above has been proven to be completely error-free. In the field of satellites, there will be a major transformation, and this is not just a joke from Wang Chonglin. It's really going to happen. Wang Chonglin glanced at the paper for the last time, then put it away, stood up, and said, Su Hao, you said before that your model can fly, right? Yes, that's right, Su Hao said. Can you give it a try? I want to take a look at the details of this model. Wang Chonglin spoke up. His intention, as understood by the other 3 academicians and the principal, is to seal the paper. Even academicians cannot carefully and thoroughly review it, but instead find professional personnel to handle it. The 4 academicians present are not professionals responsible for the aerospace and satellite fields, but they can understand a little bit. After all, they are also academicians and are very clear about the importance and value of this paper. Wang Chonglin was worried about the leakage of his paper, so he decided to lead by example and no longer watch the paper. So, a few people arrived at the backyard, where there was a huge open space. After Su Hao moved the satellite rocket to the field, he looked at Wang Chonglin. Wang Chonglin nodded at him. Su Hao nodded and pressed the launch button directly. This action immediately stunned Wang Chonglin for a second. Su Hao, I asked you to dismantle the satellite. Why did you launch it directly? Halfway through, the sound was already drowned out by the loud sound of the engine running. The fuel began to burn, the thrusters began to launch, and the flame's tail burned the earth, producing a huge thrust that shot the rocket into the sky, breaking away from the vast land. The academicians present were all dumbfounded. What about satellites? Did you just take off directly like this? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. A giant oolong begins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What? What are you saying? I can't hear you. Although the rocket is only 1 person tall. In theory, the fuel inside cannot sustain into space. But in order to ensure the realism of the model, Su Hao put in some effort and searched for new fuels about rockets in the library. As expected, he really found a recipe technique. So, all the fuel carried in satellite rockets is new fuel, which contains a large amount of formaldehyde and liquid propellant, and can unleash several times more energy than previous fuels. Roaming and rumbling. The rocket suddenly rose up and headed straight into the sky. The tail of the flame was not large, but the terrifying energy released still burned this dry mud land black. As the satellite rocket takes off, The four academicians present and Principal Sun were completely dumbfounded. Principal Sun really didn't expect it. Can fly, surprisingly it can really fly to an invisible height. This rocket is a bit impressive. The four academicians, on the other hand, were dumbfounded. This time, they were truly stunned, standing still in place, unable to regain their senses for a long time. Wang Chonglin took a deep breath and his blood pressure came up. He was trying to suppress his blood pressure. Did the satellite launch directly with the rocket without even looking at it? What kind of effort is he doing? The rocket was launched like this. Lin Jinghua still asked Su Hao in a daze. That's right. Teacher Wang just nodded at me and asked me to launch. Su Haoli naturally said. The three of them instantly turned their gaze towards Wang Chonglin. Wang Chonglin was shocked. It's none of my business. I nodded to him to ask him to first dismantle the satellite, see the details of the satellite, and then consider whether to launch it or not. Who knew that Su Hao might have misunderstood his meaning and just launched the rocket? Can he be blamed for this? In this way, before the four academicians had a chance to see the details of the satellite, it had already been launched into space by a rocket. Academician Qin sighed and clasped his wrist. I haven't seen the satellite's neutrino structure yet. Academician Zhang Jing also sighed very much. She is a female academician who was relatively quiet just now, but she still really wants to take a look at the technology. Unexpectedly, the satellite took off directly. I haven't seen satellite communication technology, satellite measurement and control technology, satellite telemetry technology, and satellite positioning technology. Academician Zhang Jing sighed. Although humans are tycoons in the medical field, she is also very eager to take a look at the internal structure of this obviously different satellite and understand it. After all, from today on, this satellite and paper are likely to be confidential documents that will be handed over to professionals in the satellite field of the Chinese Academy of Sciences or professionals from the Space Administration for research. Unfortunately, I don't have many ideas about satellites. I really want to see that rocket. The rocket just took off, with such a small volume and very little fuel to carry, but it can generate such a large amount of energy. You see, this dry mud land has already started to turn black. As you can see, this rocket is also very interesting and worth studying. Lin Jinghua spoke continuously. One person at a time, it made Wang Chonlin's face a bit uncomfortable and he quickly coughed twice. At the same time. Outside. It's quiet again. What's the situation? Why hasn't there been any movement? Is the morale of the four courtyards low, so they just took action? You're a bit outrageous. Several mentors and classmates did not leave. Everyone was drawn out of curiosity. After all, their defense only took a few minutes, while Su Hao had already taken half an hour to enter. And most importantly, there was intense noise coming from the room just now. Everyone was very curious about what kind of paper Su Hao had written, and how much water was needed to attract the insults of the four academicians. As a citizen of the Dragon Kingdom, it is difficult to resist the curiosity of eating melons. At this moment, suddenly, someone pointed to the sky in surprise and said, "What's that thing?" Everyone looks up together. It was discovered that in the distant sky, a flying object with a pointed head and an elliptical tail soared into the sky, and its tail even pulled up a flame. Why does this thing look a bit like a rocket launch? Someone weakly said something and gave his own guess. Rocket. So small rocket. Or is it very large from a distance and looks very small to us? Everyone is busy and confused, but it doesn't hinder their shock. Shouldn't it be a rocket, right? Everyone really didn't understand, their faces were shocked and full of confusion. Backyard. Principal Sun realized that today's launch must also be kept confidential. Quickly took out the phone to inquire about the current situation of the blockade. After learning that the outside had been sealed off and not allowed to go out, only allowed to go in. Principal Sun thought for a moment and added another note. Individuals who cannot verify their identity are not allowed to enter. If they are teachers or students of our school, they can only enter the surrounding area after verifying their identity. After hanging up the phone, he turned his gaze to Su Hao. At the same time, Wang Chonglin asked, "Did you make this model, or did your supervisor make it?" "I did it," Su Hao said truthfully. "Did you complete it independently?" Wang Chonglin exclaimed in surprise. "That's right." Su Hao nodded. Wang Chonlin's gaze turned to Lin Jinghua. Lin Jinghua nodded invisibly. Lin Jinghua understood what Wang Chonglin meant. Lao Wang. This has inspired some ideas. Why do 4 academicians of the Chinese Academy of Sciences come to the university every year to serve as defense committee members? Because the Chinese Academy of Sciences is a subordinate unit of the University of Science and Technology of China. And the Chinese Academy of Sciences does indeed need to absorb some fresh blood every year, so it turned its attention to its affiliated schools. And Su Hao's performance, his paper, and the model he made himself fully demonstrate the abilities of this young man. I completely have the ability to enter the Chinese Academy of Sciences. If Su Hao enters the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Lin Jinghua also thinks it's quite reasonable. From his ability to fluently articulate various techniques in the paper, it can be seen that even with his mentor behind the scenes, Su Hao definitely understands these. Su Hao does have the qualification to enter the Chinese Academy of Sciences to conduct such research. When 2 people silently communicate with each other. It is more than 10 kilometers away from the University of Science and Technology of China. A desert military base. A huge rocket was quietly placed. A middle-aged man in military uniform was filled with excitement as he watched the rocket about to be launched. He is Major General Chu, the person in charge of the military base here. Beside General Chu was Pei Qian, the Chief Engineering Officer of the Space Administration. 3 years ago, Pei Qian arrived at this military secret base and carried out the 5th-generation satellite program with the orders from above. After 3 years of disdainful effort, they finally developed the satellite. At this point, the 5th-generation satellite is stored on top of the rocket. And this rocket is about to take off and land in space. A satellite with a precision of 0.5 meters will be a new development in China's satellite field. Thinking of this, Pei Qian was filled with excitement. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. As the rocket countdown ends, a huge tail flame rises into the sky, and the rocket rushes into distant space. Everyone cheered and jumped with joy. With a smile on his face, Pei Qian spoke softly. Contact the 2 astronauts on the space station and ask them to record this sacred scene. Record the successful launch and docking of the 5th-generation satellite. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. It will go into space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay. With Pei Qian's command, the staff of the space agency immediately contacted the 2 astronauts on the space station. Space station. 2 astronauts, one named Zhang Wei and the other named Wang Hu. The 5th-generation satellite has finally taken off. Great. Great. When I heard this news, Zhang Wei was so excited that he even shed tears. The field of satellites has always been a development that the world pays attention to. Someone has said that future wars will not start on Earth, but will end in space, which proves the importance of the space field to humanity. Eagle Saucer's satellite can achieve a terrifying accuracy of 0.1 meters. However, Maoxiong can only achieve a positioning accuracy of 1.5 meters. What excites Zhang Wei is the launch of the 5th-generation satellite. The accuracy of the fourth-generation satellite is no different from that of the Maoxiong satellite. Now they have finally evolved to the fifth-generation satellite. This is gratifying and congratulatory. Zhang Wei is excited. Wang Hu is equally excited. I don't know how much accuracy can be improved by this fifth-generation satellite technology. This docking will be completed by Wang Hu and Zhang Wei. After all, they are all in the space station. Here, camera. Wang Hu quickly took out the instrument that could record everything and handed it over to Zhang Wei. The two of them looked at the blue planet from the transparent window, eagerly waiting for the rocket to take off. Not long after, Zhang Wei suddenly became very excited and said, "Rocket! Rocket! I saw the rocket!" The rocket slowly lifted off from the blue planet. On this rocket, the essence of satellite technology, a new generation of satellites, was born. Zhang Wei, holding the camera, had already captured this stunning scene. The photo was conveyed back to the military base. Everyone cheered and jumped again. The rocket took off without any accidents. It was successfully seen by the astronauts on the space station. This will be an innovation in satellite technology. How many difficulties and obstacles have they gone through in these 3 years of research? Finally, today, we will see the launch of rockets and the entry of satellites into orbit. General Chu was extremely excited and clenched his fist, tears streaming down his face and tears filling his eyes. Pei Qian stared at the photo, but felt something was wrong. How do you feel? This rocket seems a bit small. Space station. Zhang Wei constantly filmed the scene of the rocket taking off. The rocket started very small and later became larger. But gradually, Zhang Wei stopped filming. A hint of doubt appeared on the face. Pulled Wang Hu's clothes. "Why are you pulling me? I'm filming." Wang Hu shook off his hand. "Wang Hu, do you feel anything? Something is wrong." Zhang Wei hesitated and said. "What's wrong?" Wang Hu asked. Zhang Wei thought for a moment and said, "Don't you think this rocket seems a bit small?" "Is it small?" Wang Hu looked carefully and was immediately shocked. "I'll go, it's really a bit small. And it's not even a bit small." At first, he didn't pay attention and focused on excitement and tears, but now when he started watching carefully, Wang Hu noticed something was wrong. What's going on? Why does this rocket feel a bit small? Moreover, the small one is not a bit small. In theory, rockets shouldn't be so small, right? After careful consideration, Zhang Wei's eyes suddenly lit up and he tentatively said. "Do you think it's possible that during our time at the space station, not only has our satellite technology made progress, but also our rocket technology has made progress?" He tried to determine. "Is this a micro-rocket?" Wang Hu's eyes lit up immediately and he began to analyze. "It compresses the volume, but it can also reach space. The advantage of doing so is that the fuel consumption is also reduced. No, fuel has also improved, otherwise such a small amount of fuel would definitely not be able to reach space." Zhang Wei's eyes became increasingly bright. "That is to say, our technology has made significant breakthroughs. Not only has satellite technology advanced, but also in the field of rockets, and even new discoveries have been made in the field of fuel." "Okay. That's great." The two of them began to burst into tears again. Defense room, courtyard. Seeing the rocket not landing for a long time. This scene made Wang Chonglin suspect. "Suhao, have you calculated the landing point of the rocket? Why hasn't the rocket landed yet after so long?" Upon hearing Wang Chonglin's words, Suhao showed a stunned expression and then said. "No, satellite rockets, they definitely need to go into space. I haven't calculated the specific landing point yet." Hear Suhao's words. Everyone twitched at the corners of their mouths. "Do you think your rocket can really go into space?" Wang Chonglin pondered for a moment and said, "No, we still need to calculate the whereabouts. Your rocket is a graded rocket, and if you set it rigorously enough, it will be graded and detached after reaching a certain height. After the graded rocket falls off and lands on the ground, it will leave debris. We must locate this part of the wreckage to prevent potential leaks." As an academic tycoon in the military field. As a practical person, Wang Chonglin is very rigorous in many things and speaks without hesitation. It makes sense. How about this? At this moment, Lin Jinghua spoke up and said, "Based on the rocket data provided in the paper, let's calculate the landing point of the graded rocket together." "Interesting, you can give it a try." Academician Qin's eyes showed a hint of interest. Academician Zhang said, "You can also calculate it and consider it as an experiment." In this way, under the stunned gaze of Principal Sun, the four academicians immediately agreed and started calculating the landing point of the rocket based on the data provided in the paper. At the same time, "I feel a bit dizzy outside. It's been an hour already. What's going on? Why hasn't it ended yet? An hour has passed. Teacher, there shouldn't be something happening inside, right?" A classmate couldn't help but ask the teacher, who shouted for help. At this moment, the teacher also had some grievances in his heart, but he shook his head and said, "The principal just called me. Unless someone comes out, no one can go in." Hiss, what exactly happened inside? A few classmates suddenly remembered. Return to the defense room. Several academicians quickly began to calculate. Through computer operations, they quickly obtained a result. Then, the whole room fell into a deathly silence. Just when Principal Sun couldn't distinguish what was going on at the scene, Wang Chonglin took a deep breath again and felt his blood pressure surge again. He looked at Su Hao and said with utmost seriousness, "Based on our calculations, we have obtained a result. This rocket will eventually break free from the Earth's gravity and successfully land in space. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Who invented the satellite in Chapter 8? You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as this sentence came out, Principal Sun couldn't sit still. "It's impossible, isn't it, Academician Wang? How could that be? Even the previous generation of rockets made mistakes during experimental flights and ultimately failed to ascend into space. This rocket is so small with a satellite inside, which means it can carry less fuel. Coupled with various components such as thrusters, how many pounds of fuel can this rocket carry? How could such a rocket fly into space? Academician Wang, is there a problem with your computer?" The words spoken by Principal Sun were a bit frightening. After all, questioning the calculation results of an academician is truly thought-provoking. What is an academician? He is the strongest research academic tycoon in the field and the highest academic title in science and technology. Any academician is a treasure of the Dragon Kingdom and a treasure of humanity. But at this moment, there is no room for Principal Sun to reconsider whether his words are appropriate. He was already overwhelmed by the result and couldn't turn his mind. Because Principal Sun himself was involved in the development of the previous generation of manned rockets. In other words, let's put it that way. Principal Sun also knows Zhang Wei and Wang Hu from the space station, who were developed by Principal Sun and his colleagues as manned rockets and sent these two people to the space station. So, Principal Sun is so impolite. After all, as a rocket research engineer, he may even have a better understanding of rockets than a certain academician present. Can such a small rocket still go into space? The result of only 4 academicians miscalculating is convincing. Upon hearing this, Wang Chonglin shook his head but was not angry. Instead, he patiently explained to Principal Sunday. "Principal Sun, what you said is impossible, it's just based on ordinary fuel. Ordinary fuel does indeed require a very, very large amount to push rockets into space and escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. And with such a small volume of ordinary rocket fuel, it is indeed impossible to push rockets into space, even if it is a model rather than a real rocket, but if, what I mean is if. In the rocket fuel area of this paper, the fuel used is actually a new type of fuel with the same volume energy that exceeds modern rocket fuel by several times. New fuel. Principal Sun suddenly exclaimed, "Impossible. Isn't the new fuel still under development? There hasn't been any progress yet." Principal Sun has 10,000 disbeliefs. Wang Chonglin moved to the fuel page of the paper and handed it directly to Principal Sun for him to read. The development of new fuels is indeed still ongoing, but it cannot be denied that in this paper, Su Hao's independently developed new fuel has been born, and there are no obvious errors in the data. According to our calculations, this rocket will really carry a satellite and land in space. At this moment, the sound of Principal Sun swallowing saliva in his throat was very clear. During the interval between Wang Chonglin's words, only the sound of him swallowing a mouthful of saliva and the sound of a needle falling at this moment can be heard clearly. How could it be? Principal Sun only has these 4 words left in his mind. How could it be? How could he not know the difficulty of developing new fuels? But new fuels have actually emerged, and they were born in Su Hao's paper. This paper has a somewhat frightening rhythm. But after all, it was the principal. Principal Sun quickly reacted and quickly made a phone call. Now, no one is allowed to enter this room. Anyone who enters the waiting room for the defense outside is temporarily not allowed to leave. Confidentiality level, upgraded. Principal Sun's face was extremely serious, and now the value of this paper has skyrocketed once again. In fact, all 4 academicians Wang Chonglin overlooked. In this paper, they all focus on satellites rather than rockets. Because in their view, satellites are the key. It's not that rockets are inferior to satellites, but from the bottom of my heart, I don't think Su Hao's paper can have any new impact on the field of rockets. Because in the field of rockets, it is completely beyond the reach of a student. A paper that can have an impact on the field of rockets was written by a graduating senior student. This is no less than Hawking's violent seizure of Janus. So they ignored the idea that the rocket in Su Hao's paper was just an ordinary model, with thrusters and some fuel added for realism. But no one expected that Su Hao invented a new type of fuel. Based on the calculation of the new data, the 4 academicians came up with a result. A rocket, very likely carrying a satellite, really arrived in space. So, the rocket will take off and the satellite will reach space. Will this satellite be connected to orbit? At this moment, academician Zhang Jing's question made everyone present feel that their scalp was starting to tingle. If it really aligns, that would be ridiculous. A defense scene has added a satellite to our country. Lin Zhenghua thinks it's too absurd. Space station. The satellite in the rocket is about to appear, and the satellite is about to enter orbit. At this moment, Zhang Wei was extremely excited. I saw it not far away. The rocket has lost its final power. This represents that the rocket's mission has been completed. Next, it's the appearance of the satellites in the rocket. Micro-rockets, micro-satellites, I didn't expect that in the years before we returned to land, science has undergone such great changes. I really hope to return to our motherland soon and take a good look at modern science. Zhang Wei and Wang Hu were completely focused on staring at the rocket. At this point, the rocket's mission has been completed. Finally, a corner of the satellite inside was revealed. The silver signal board, combined with the central control room, resembles a silver butterfly about to flutter its wings. How beautiful! Zhang Wei took this photo. Unfortunately, because the satellite has not completely detached from the rocket, this photo cannot see a clearer satellite, only a rough outline can be seen. When this photo is conveyed to the military base, Everyone is excited and about to witness the satellite's orbit connection. But only the designer Pei Qian felt something was wrong. How do you feel? It doesn't look right, right? Connected. It's finally starting to connect. Space Station. Zhang Wei and Wang Hu watched the scene excitedly. Watching the scene of the satellite starting to orbit. Zhang Wei kept pressing the shooting button to capture this stunning scene. When the real satellite bloomed, the beauty of science at that moment made Zhang Wei incredibly intoxicated, to the point where he had forgotten to convey the captured photos back. The satellite, like a silver butterfly, finally enters orbit and begins to operate. At this moment, Zhang Weikai was like waking up from a dream, looking at the photos he had taken, feeling a sense of pride in his heart. It was me who captured the 5th-generation satellite. At the same time, he conveyed the photo back. Indulge in the beauty of satellites with Wang Hu. When a long series of photos were conveyed back to the military base. Gradually, the cheers of some designers at NASA weakened. Doubts are starting to increase. How do you feel that it's different from what we're studying? I feel like the color is not quite right. Will the photos taken at the space station be distorted when transmitted back? What is the situation? At the moment of seeing the full view of the satellite, Pei Qian's heart was also very confused. As the chief designer, Pei Qian's mind and heart have been filled with the appearance of the 5th-generation satellite in the past 3 years, so when he returned to the hazy look in the photo just now, he immediately felt something was wrong. Now, when he saw all the photos, he was even more convinced of one thing. This is not the satellite we are studying. But at the same time, his heart began to become confused again. Is there anyone else studying satellites elsewhere? At the same time. Space Station. Wang Hu and Zhang Wei burst into tears and cheered for the satellite's docking. At this moment, Zhang Wei's residual light saw that something seemed to be growing on the blue planet, so he looked over. At first glance, the whole person was dumbfounded. Quickly tugged at Wang Hu's clothes. What are you doing? Don't stop me from shooting. Wang Hu shook off his hand once again. This time, Zhang Wei's hands trembled uncontrollably, unable to speak. Wang Hu followed his gaze and looked over. On the blue planet, a huge rocket is constantly growing and heading towards them. Thank you for your support. I will work hard to write this book well. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Military Mobilization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, Wang Hu was also confused. Isn't it? Isn't the handover of satellites into orbit already over? Isn't the rocket already launched? Why did you have another one? Zhang Wei fell into contemplation and said, we haven't received any notification of the second satellite rocket mission either. What's the situation? At this moment, Wang Hu's mood was already apace. Upon hearing this, he shook his head in a daze. It looks completely unclear about the current situation. I don't know, he couldn't distinguish what was happening now. The satellite handover ceremony has come to an end, and after the rocket was launched, the satellite did indeed enter orbit. Everything went very smoothly and harmoniously. Wang Hu and Zhang Wei even embraced each other, tears welling up in their eyes, moved by the leapfrog modern science of the Dragon Kingdom. As a result, even tears haven't dried up yet. Why did another rocket come? Wang Hu couldn't understand the situation. Zhang Wei also doesn't understand what exactly happened. He took the next photo and quickly conveyed it, along with his own doubts. What's the situation? Are we going to launch the second rocket today? We haven't received any painful notification. Military base. General Chu was originally still in tears, lamenting the past 3 years of research experience. Until Pei Qian pulled him over and told the true truth once again. General Chu was immediately dumbfounded. What is it? Are you saying that the satellite that has already been in orbit is not the satellite that was born here? The rocket that flew into space was not born from us either. General Chu's voice is a bit loud. Pei Qianlian hurriedly said, keep your voice down and don't let the soldiers know. This matter is a bit complicated, and I am also a bit confused about the situation. I need to call headquarters now to inquire about the situation and see if there is still a rocket to launch today. Then you go quickly, Major General Chu quickly said. Just take advantage of Pei Qian's phone call. General Chu began to go out and soothe everyone's mood. At this time, some NASA engineers are still full of confusion. But the soldiers who have been busy for the past 3 years have not realized any problems, and they are still cheering and moving to tears. On the other side, Pei Qian called the director of the Space Administration, also known as his boss, and lowered his voice, quickly saying, Director, I have something to ask you. I haven't finished speaking yet. The director had already interrupted his words with joy. Pei Qian, I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect that your achievement this time would be so impressive. I didn't expect your research on the military base to make such remarkable progress. In the past, we used to compete with teddy bears to determine who was the second in line, but once your satellite comes out, what is eagle sauce? Spicy chicken. The director smiled and said. Now the entire space agency, from top to bottom, has been shocked to the point where everyone says your research is amazing. In just 3 years, you have developed such a big treasure. This time, the Bureau is completely convinced of you. Since your research over there is almost over, come back as soon as possible. This satellite is really amazing. The director praised Pei Qian repeatedly. The satellite is highly praised, and it is even said that if it crushes Eagle Sauce's satellite is just a spicy chicken. In the past, when Pei Qian heard these praises, his heart would definitely be very satisfied, joyful, and proud. But now, there was no joy at all in his heart, and instead he began to explain with a bitter smile. Pei Qian explained, Director, that satellite was not launched from me. What? Don't make fun of me, Pei Qian. The director clearly does not believe it. It really wasn't launched from me. Pei Qian said with a bitter smile. Coincidentally, at this moment, the photo conveyed by Zhang Wei and a segment of his own doubts were also conveyed, and they were also conveyed to Pei Qian's phone. Pei Qian looked at the photo and smiled bitterly. Director, let's put it this way. Today, we did indeed launch a satellite, which is the latest 5th-generation satellite. I watched with my own eyes as the rocket carried it into space. But the new satellite that is currently in orbit was not launched by us. The rocket we launched has just arrived in space. The satellite we developed has not yet been connected to orbit. I also want to ask you this question. Did other colleagues at the space agency launch satellite rockets? Upon hearing this, the director realized that Pei Qian was not joking and quickly said, I haven't received any notification from anyone to launch a rocket here, except for you. That is to say, the entire space agency, except for Pei Qian, has no one to launch a rocket today. No. At this moment, Pei Qian's face gradually became serious. He couldn't help but ask, Director, what is the specific performance of that satellite? You just praised it so much. This satellite. It's really amazing. The director took a deep breath and said, to put it this way, the performance of this satellite has almost surpassed any satellite launched by our space agency in the past. No, it's either almost, it's crushing any satellite we've ever launched before. Any of its technologies far surpass our satellites. What's even more frightening is that its size is very small and its power consumption is also very low. Let's put it this way, the 0.1 precision satellite of Eagle Sauce is not worth it in front of it at all. The director couldn't help but say, the positioning accuracy of this satellite has reached an astonishing 0.01 meters. Now that I am using this satellite, I can directly see your approximate face. Hear this sentence. Pei Qian's body trembled, but he couldn't resist and glanced at the sky. 0.01 meter accuracy. This satellite is going against the sky. Director, have you found out the origin of this satellite? Pei Qian continued to ask. This matter is of great significance. You just called me and I realized that it's not something you're researching. I need to notify the military now and ask them to help me find the location to launch the rocket. Anyway, we must find this talent. Can he actually develop a satellite with an accuracy of 0.01 meters? It's really scary. Pei Qianlian hurriedly said, it's not just satellites. This person is also very skilled in developing rockets. In the photos I saw, the rocket's volume is very small, far from the size we are studying, but it can actually carry satellites into space. No matter what the purpose is, we must find this person. After hanging up the phone, the director quickly launched and contacted the military. In no time, General Chu's phone rang. It turned out that the task was assigned to General Chu. General Chu answered the phone. What? It's inside the campus of the University of Science and Technology of China. Okay, I'll go right away. After hanging up the phone, Major General Chu said to Pei Qian, I have received instructions from above. The military detector shows that there is a flying object that looks very much like a rocket rising from inside the campus of the University of Science and Technology of China. I will go over first. Okay. Space Station. At this time, Zhang Wei has not received a response yet. With a bewildered expression, he watched as the second satellite successfully entered orbit. He turned his head and looked at Wang Hu, asking, what's the situation? I don't know. Wang Hu was also a bit confused. Finally. It's here. At the entrance of the campus of the University of Science and Technology of China. Wang Fu had some old tears streaming down his face. Su Hao, I hope there's still time. With the last glimmer of hope in his heart, Wang Fu hurriedly headed towards the waiting room for the defense. Finally, Wang Fu arrived at the defense waiting room. Seeing Su Hao's mentor coming. A mentor couldn't help but say, your student has been in for a full 2 hours and hasn't come out yet. You go in quickly. What? 2 hours. I was asked for 2 hours. Wang Fu automatically classified it, and Su Hao stayed inside for 2 hours being asked questions for 2 hours. Looking at that door, Wang Fu is about to enter. The shouting teacher quickly stopped him and said, the principal said, no one is allowed in now. I am the supervisor of the defense student. I have only just arrived due to traffic congestion, and my student is currently being questioned inside. As a supervisor, I should be eligible to enter. The shouting teacher thought for a moment and said, I need to go in and say something. Time passes by bit. Wang Fu waited anxiously. Su Hao, it's me who caused you to fail to defend this time. I'm sorry for you. At this moment, the teacher who was shouting came and said, Teacher Wang Fu, you can go in now. Okay. Wang Fu stood up, with a burning flame in his eyes and a powerful aura emanating from his body, attracting the attention of others. Walk into that door. At the moment of arriving in the defense room, Wang Fu closed his eyes and bravely exclaimed, I am Su Hao's mentor. If you have any questions, come and ask me. Don't make things difficult for my students anymore. At this point, everything in the room was harmonious. Sitting in the small maza, Su Hao, who was discussing the content of the paper with 4 academicians, turned his head in confusion and cast strange glances with the 4 academicians and Principal Sunday. Teacher, are you here? Su Hao exclaimed in surprise. Wang Fu opened his eyes, and upon seeing this harmonious scene, his brain suddenly couldn't turn. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Confirming satellite positioning accuracy. The whole scene was in an uproar. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Wang Fu's mind is a bit overwhelmed at this moment. He had already fantasized that his own students would be asked difficult questions. What about this question, that question? On the traffic jam, I saw someone sending me a WeChat message and realized that Su Hao had been inside for half an hour, making it even more difficult to sit still. Who can withstand being stumped for half an hour? Until he entered the door, he had been thinking for 2 hours, but he hadn't come out yet. I'm afraid even Dao Xian will collapse when asked, right? And the principal also said he wasn't allowed in. The principal also followed suit. This time Wang Fu came in with the intention of turning his face around. Bully me if you want to bully me, don't bully my students. As soon as he came in, he opened his eyes and saw such a strange scene, as if he had died. For academicians sat on chairs, while Su Hao carried a small horse and sat on the side. Principal's son also sat in a seat next to him. Surrounded in the middle is a computer with a lot of text inside, where several people communicate together. It doesn't seem like a defense venue at all, but rather like an academic exchange meeting. And it's also very down-to-earth. So Wang Fu's brain crashed. Before he could react, Wang Changlin's eyes lit up and he quickly stepped forward, grabbing Wang Fu's hands. Are you Su Hao's mentor, right? Oh my, I didn't expect that our University of Science and Technology of China is still hiding the person you are. Academician Zhang Jing is also very curious. Yeah, I didn't expect to. I was also there during last year's defense, why didn't I see you? Su Hao's mentor. Hello. I've been admiring him for a while, but I do quite admire him. Academician Qin also shook hands with Wang Fu. Finally, Lin Jinghua stood aside, his eyes also burning as he said. Professor Wang Fu, staying here as a mentor and honing your qualifications is a bit too talented. Why don't you come to the Chinese Academy of Sciences? I will apply to the dean for the highest standard for you. This enthusiasm even leans towards a fiery appearance, which completely confuses Wang Fu. What exactly happened during these 2 hours? 10 minutes ago. The final landing point of the rocket was calculated, and surprisingly, it was not on land, but in space. For academicians, including Principal's son, were all stunned. I had no imagination of this scene happening. Rockets, new materials. Oh my goodness. Principal's son has been completely convinced, a paper, so many things, convincing. A paper, for someone else, may just be a conjecture of some kind. It's really difficult to have some truth about a conjecture of a certain concept. Previously, Principal's son felt that the quality was getting worse year by year. At least last year, there were still 2 people who passed the defense in hell difficulty. Surprisingly, there was none this year. But now he doesn't feel that much at all. It's amazing to have a Su Hao this year. There are real things and new concepts. There are really too many things. There are too many new concepts. Just like the Sahara Desert, having too much dry goods makes people feel like they are lacking in water. Principal's son, there are still 4 teachers. Can I pass the defense? Seeing that everyone was too obsessed, Su Hao appeared somewhat cautious when asking. Pass. Of course I can pass. Just your paper, whoever can't pass, I'll compile it for you. Lin Jinghua stared directly and said. I feel like this paper can be divided into several parts, and each one can be sent as a SCI. This quality is too dry, it doesn't seem like a paper at all. Is this the paper I can see? Pass. 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 All 4 academicians feel that not allowing Su Hao to pass this paper would be too bullying. Papers at this level, I feel like they are all at the level of several SCI papers. The most crucial thing is that once the technology is proven, the field of Longhua satellites will enter a brand new stage. Even the rocket field in Dragon Country will undergo some changes as a result. After all, in Su Hao's paper, new materials were born. What is the concept of new materials? This will disrupt the material industry. Science is a circle, and the paper presented by Su Hao is enough to stir up many fields. Even if they write their own papers, they can't come up with so much dry work. It's good to be able to pass, it's good to be able to pass. Su Hao breathed a sigh of relief. I worked as a fake for 4 years in college, but fortunately, I was able to pass the defense. Xiaohua is right. It's really easy to get over the defense by doing something new. Su Hao nodded in his heart. Seeing Su Hao's cautious and happy expression, Wang Changlin was speechless at that moment. You can already write a paper at this level. Are you still worried that you won't be able to pass the defense? If you write this paper yourself, just take it out and throw it in the face of someone else's defense committee member. He estimates that the defense committee member will be angry first, then check the paper, and think. You threw it well. So now, a new problem has emerged. Since rockets are real, they do indeed enter space. So satellites. Shouldn't they really be able to connect to orbit, right? Lin Zhenguo raised an extremely important question that no one had anticipated for the time being. Wait. Lin Zhenguo's sentence directly opened everyone's brain circuit. If the satellite is real and can indeed orbit. From now on, there is no mistake in any part of the paper, only one area that has not been confirmed. Has the satellite's positioning accuracy really reached an astonishing 0.01 meters? Sleeping slot. This last sentence was spoken by Wang Changlin. He looked at Su Hao, hoping to receive a confirmation. The 4 academicians looked at Su Hao at the same time, hoping to get a result from his words. That's right. At this moment, Su Hao nodded slowly and acknowledged the accuracy of 0.01 meters. Seeing Su Hao nod, the whole scene was in an uproar. Wang Changlin's brain was even more resounding. What is the concept of a satellite with an accuracy of 0.01 meters? It's 10 times that of eagle sauce, and even a furry bear can't beat it. China's original satellite positioning accuracy could reach 1.5 meters, but you've suddenly increased it 150 times. How could a satellite, loaded into that rocket with such a small volume, still achieve such a terrifying positioning distance? Unfortunately, I didn't see that satellite and flew directly into space. At this point, the 3 academicians cast murderous gazes at Wang Changlin again. Wang Changlin. I am wrongly accused. At this moment, Principal Sun stood up and asked, Su Hao, how did you discover new materials? Principal Sun spoke with a hint of regret. I was one of the engineers of the previous generation of manned rockets. When it comes to fuel, there was a big problem at the time. We had to change the rocket itself in order to accommodate more fuel and ascend to the heavens. Later, my colleagues and I studied new materials for a long time, but none of us came up with a name. How did you come up with the formula for new fuels? Su Hao blinked and said, read more books. Principal Sunday. Principal Sun is about to vomit blood. Is it really good for you to be cute to me at such a critical moment? Su Hao is also a bit helpless. What I said is true. Principal Sun shook his head and gave Su Hao a small maza. Start asking about the contents of the paper. Subsequently, the 4 academicians also sat aside, raising some questions from the paper, and then Su Hao answered them. Not for long. Wang Fu pushed the door open and loudly said, I am Su Hao's mentor. If you have any questions, come and ask me. Don't make things difficult for my students anymore. And then there's everything that just happened. Wang Changlin held Wang Fu's hand and was very excited. Since you asked me any questions, I'm not polite, he said. How did you utilize Zhongxinzi in high-precision satellite GPS positioning technology? How did you come up with the idea of using such a small rocket? How did you come up with new materials? How did you achieve microsatellites? Why can you achieve so much more powerful performance than a normal satellite despite having such a small body? A series of problems caused Wang Fu's brain to crash again. Is Su Hao's paper related to rocket satellites? Are academicians asking abstract questions? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.